Thank you all for being here tonight. We're very excited to be able to help you talk about your anxious pets. The reason that this has come up tonight is I know for me, it's one of the top reasons that people come to me for animal communication. And so I am an animal communicator and intuitive, and I talk to animals about all kinds of different things. But anxiety comes up a lot because it can be the root of a lot of different issues. So I'm excited to have you all here, and I'm going to pass it over to Allie.
All right. Yeah, this is so cool. So this is the first time Denise and I have done this. And Denise and I just met over the summer because we share the same business coach. So we just went through a training together and it was awesome. And it's like we have a lot in common. Like we need to join forces. And so ta-da, this is what we're doing. So I'm gonna kick it off. And then and then Denise will talk, and then, we can take questions. And if you have questions, you can go ahead and type them in the chat. But when we get to the end, maybe we can just unmute and you can ask a question then. So my name is Allie Phillips. I live in Michigan. We show where we live based on showing our hand, and I'm right here in the middle in Lansing, Michigan. And I have been an attorney for 30 years in the field of criminal prosecution, specializing in animal abuse cases. So I, boy, I have done a lot of work on behalf of animals, not only in the courtroom, but teaching. I created the National Center for Prosecution of Animal Abuse in Washington, D.C. I ran the legislative office for American Humane Association in D.C. and was a lobbyist. Oh, that was hard. I have taught prosecutors and everybody who works with prosecutors, and I travel across the globe because my specialty is how animal abuse links to violence against people. As a result of that, I created a nonprofit called Sheltering Animals and Families Together. And that work that I'm doing there started the movement of domestic violence shelters creating on-site pet housing. And that's why I was on webinars all day today, because it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So there's a lot going on. But I've got about 325 shelters in 46 states and 6 countries and growing. But on top of all of that, 13 years ago, I started my healing and wellness business. And I have certifications in energy healing. I'm a master teacher in several modalities. I'm an advanced crystal master teacher where I teach the science so that you can understand the woo-woo. I specialize in essential oils for pets. I actually wrote a book called The Oily Pet. Some of you may have it. If you don't, you can grab it on my website, manifestedharmony.com. And I have been volunteering to help shelter animals, abused animals, neglected animals since 2000. So for 24 years. And today I've done a couple of coordinations of getting animals out of the Hurricane Helene location and up here to Michigan. So the work is never ending. So I come at working with animals from an attorney brain and a healer brain. So it's a very unique, bizarre, strange perspective. Plus, I have 3 felines who are my chief feline officers, and they rule my life. So that's just a little bit about me. And so I want to talk about some truths about the pets that we have in our lives. So I'm actually going to open up the chat so that I can see what you all are saying. And I'd love to know in the chat, tell us how many pets you have, what kind of pets you have. So, when I am teaching all of my energy wellness classes for pets, I start with the foundation that pets actually have a purpose. All animals have a purpose for why they're here. They don't necessarily have a soul mission like we do, they have a purpose, and it really is a purpose of service. And what is unique, and I'm going to talk primarily about cats and dogs, but you can extrapolate this to other animals. If you're a dog person, you got dogs, you're the dog lady. Think about what dogs do. They get us out of the house. They want to go for a walk. When you go for a walk, people come up and say, "Oh, your dog is so cute." So dogs get you interacting with people. They get you active, they're playful. And so if you are a dog person, that is what you need. That's what dogs are giving to you. Cats, on the other hand, they want us to relax. They want us to chill out. Sleep on the couch in yoga positions, be in the sun, and be reflective. This is why I have 3 cats, because I need to do that all the time. And when we recognize that pets are here really of service to us, that can really help you with their wellness. And part of, and I was literally just teaching this in a class, a couple of the people were in this class on Saturday that I was teaching, and we were talking about how part of pets being here for us, to be of service to us, to help us, to de-stress us, to help us feel better, unfortunately, they do take on our stress. They will take on an illness for us. I've seen it happen time and time again, and you cannot talk them out of it, so don't even try. And so the best thing that you can do for your pets is to take care of yourself, number one. That is the number one thing. And so if you are taking care of your stress levels, if you are taking care of your emotions and your physical health, that's going to help your pet tremendously. Unfortunately, we see a lot of animals being treated inhumanely, treated like property and commodities. And, as an attorney practicing in animal law, all animals are technically property under the law rather than being seen as sentient beings, because animals feel pain just like you and I do. They have the range of emotions like you and I do. I mean, how many of you have a pet that gets jealous of another pet, or gets angry at another pet, or gets jealous? I mean, today, I don't know what was going on with my cat Dobby and Rudy. They never spar, and they were sparring at each other. Now, yes, we had a solar eclipse today, and that's part of it. But they feel all the emotions that we do. And one thing that I love to do is learning about kind of the lessons of specific animals that they have for us. So if you're a horse person, if you have goats, you can literally buy books. Stephen Farmer writes great books about spirit animals, and you can just look at the lessons that they have for us, that they're teaching us, or you can just Google it, spiritual meaning of blue jays. And I always do this when an animal comes to my attention and like they're getting my attention. Like the other day, I was stopped in my car at an intersection and a butterfly landed on the windshield. And I'm like, "Well, hello, butterfly. What is your message for me?" And so you can just look it up. And so, animals are working with us. They're getting messages to us, and they are really here to help us, but they can take on our stress as well as a lot of stressors around us. And I'm going to go into some of those in a little bit. Because when I see an anxious pet, I usually find an anxious pet parent. So one thing that I do in my business is I help the pet parent work on their energy, which then helps their animal. When they can get grounded and calm, I notice that their pet also gets grounded and calm. Because like I said, animals feed off of our energy. They will take on the physical and the emotional energy to help us through it. And it's just part of their service. Now I'm going to share my screen because I want to tell you a couple of stories that are really interesting. All right, so this is my cat Sammy. He's in spirit. He passed away in 2012. Um, he, he could talk. He was a Siamese. He could talk. I tell you, my cats have been my best teachers when it comes to really understanding physical wellness, stress, emotional wellness, anxiety, that sort of stuff. Let me tell you about Sammy. So this was back in probably 2007, 2008. I was just starting all of my energy healing training. And Sammy, I was also an attorney in Washington, D.C., working 90 to 100-hour work weeks, very stressed, traveling all over the country. I was a hot mess, and that's the nicest way I can put it. I was literally collapsing physically and emotionally because of my work. And every time I would come home, there was a short period of time where Sammy would just promptly vomit on the floor. And I'm like, great, now I have more stress. And I would take him to the vet, and they didn't find anything wrong. And we would just go back and forth, and nothing was working. They couldn't figure it out. And then I was in a training, and my teacher said, Allie, Sammy is literally absorbing your stress and expelling it the safest way he knows how. This is his job. Like, he's literally trying to help you. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's horrifying. And she taught me a technique, and I'll talk about this again in a little bit. But I would stand on my front porch and take my hands and literally wipe my energy field. Just wipe the day off of me. I encourage you to do it. It takes about 20 seconds, if that. I would wipe the energy off of me. Sammy never vomited again. My work didn't change. My lifestyle didn't change. I changed my energy before I came into the house. And Sammy had a lot of anxiety and was vomiting, and he didn't have anxiety after that. So it's like, okay, now my lawyer brain is very intrigued. Aha, I like this. This is very interesting. Let me tell you another story. This is my cat, Rudy, the one who's sitting over here ignoring us. I'm trying not to be offended by that. So Rudy, this was about 6.5 years ago, had multiple traumatic things happen in a row. The first trauma was, it was in the middle of the night. He starts screaming. I didn't know what was wrong with him, and I rushed him to the vet. So the first trauma was he was in pain, he was screaming. The second trauma was trying to get him into the cat carrier. The third trauma was the car ride where I'm panicked. The fourth trauma was going to the emergency veterinary hospital and being put in a cage where they didn't let me see him for 24 hours. The fifth trauma was being around other animals in this ICU unit, and he had bladder stones. So he had to go through surgery. So now there's another trauma. When he came home, my 19-and-a-half-year-old cat decided that she was just kind of done with living this life, and she passed away. And there's another trauma. And at the end of that, Rudy was just a shell of a cat. He just was. He was a shell of a cat. And I used an essential oil protocol on him. For anybody who works with Young Living Oils, it's the Feelings Kit. I can send you the protocol if you want it, but he and I both had to use the Feelings Kit to release the trauma because he was starting to show signs of anxiety, and I needed to really rework him. So that was one thing that I did, and it worked. It really worked. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. Let me tell you a third story. So this is Bahama Bessie. Speaking of hurricanes, she and 130 dogs were evacuated from the Bahamas in 2019 before Hurricane Dorian destroyed the Bahamas. So 130 dogs came up here to Michigan, 10 came to my local animal shelter, and Bahama Bessie was one of them. She had multiple traumas. She had this, so animals feel weather. Some of you may know that you may have animals who are reactive to weather. They know when a storm is coming, they know when an earthquake is coming, they know when a tornado is coming, a hurricane is coming. They feel it. And Bessie had the stress of the hurricane energy, the stress of being air flighted from the Bahamas to Detroit, Michigan, then a van ride from Detroit, Michigan to Lansing, Michigan, the stress of being in a shelter, the stress of the shelter staff. And for 4 days, she didn't sleep. She shook constantly in her cage. She couldn't keep any food down. Everything was coming out of every end of her. And she was in the process of dying. And I wish they wouldn't wait until that to call me, but they finally did. And I went in and worked with her. And I did some energy work. I did some work with crystals. I did some work with essential oils. And within 20 minutes, see that picture in the bottom right? She is sound asleep, sound asleep. And the shelter staff could not believe it. And I just said, leave her here. She'll be fine. But she had trauma, and she was showing so much anxiety and shaking so much. It was so sad to watch. But these were techniques that I used on her. And then last but not least, this is my cat Stella. She's here somewhere. She's going to probably jump in my lap at any moment. So Stella is kind of like a bull in a china shop. Okay, she's a nice, round, big cat, and she gets very influenced by the moon. Do any of you have trouble sleeping during a full moon? Like it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much energy. Well, that's her. She'll run around like crazy. She chases her brothers. She just can't settle down. And during a full moon, like clockwork, she will just vomit. It's like, what is with cats and vomiting? And it's how she is expelling the energy. So I have to, use crystals, use essential oils, create a very calming environment for her to help her settle down. So, okay, so those are all the pictures that I'm going to show. So what causes stress in pets? It is frequency. For any of you who have been to any of my classes, I teach a lot of classes. A lot of them are on my YouTube page. You can go and check them out. It's the frequency that they feel. Animals are far more in tune with frequencies than we are. We feel them. Some people are more in tune with them, and most people brush them off, but animals don't. On my YouTube page, which is just youtube.com/manifestedharmony, about a month ago, I posted a class that you are welcome to go and watch. It's called Animals and Frequencies. I taught it at a national animal essential oil conference about a year ago. And so I replicated it and put it on YouTube. But pets are impacted by human stress, human emotions, other animals causing them stress and anxiety, chaos in the home. It could be kids running around, visitors coming over, having a change in the environment, like maybe being boarded, going to the vet clinic, traveling, being hospitalized. Wi-Fi is an unseen frequency. I mean, frequencies are not seen. They're all unseen. Wi-Fi can change that frequency for animals. Animals who have been abused or are in a home with maybe chronic arguing and fighting and chaos. Weather events, they feel. They feel the energy from the planet. They feel the energy from the moon. They feel the energy from solar flares. I mean, literally, animals are so surrounded by frequencies and are so in tune and so sensitive that it can create a lot of anxiety. I mean, I don't know about you, but I have yet to meet a dog that doesn't have anxiety. That's not normal. And that's why I did this presentation about all the frequencies that influence our animals. And I am seeing more frequency-induced behavioral issues and physical issues more so now than ever before. And, the short story is that animals, as well as us, we are primarily made of water, about 70% water. And water vibrates with all these frequencies. So it changes our nervous system, it changes our cells and how they communicate. And it just basically leaves everybody feeling off and anxious and edgy. I mean, I don't know if you can relate to that, but dogs that have this kind of chronic level of anxiety across the board, that's not normal. So what can you do? Let me get into some solutions. So number one, you take care of yourself. Okay. I mean, how many times have you been on an airplane and the first advice they give is in the event of a change in altitude, the air mask is going to drop. Put your mask on first and then help the person next to you. You got to take care of yourself, knowing that our beloved companion animals are literally feeding off of our energy. Okay. So if you don't take time for yourself every day, even just 10 minutes to just calm your energy, meditate, go out in nature. I'm going to talk about oils and crystals and things like that. What it is, it's about slowing down and not being so busy. I mean, we have a busy epidemic going on, and busyness is not being productive. It's actually the opposite of being productive, and it creates anxious pets. If you're running around, your pets are going to run around and get anxious. I mean, my cat Dobby follows me like a cattle dog. And if I'm walking through my house, he is literally underneath my feet. So it's like, walk slower, talk to him. I don't want him getting anxiety. So the number one thing is take care of yourself and be really mindful of your energy. The second thing is, we have this beautiful human animal bond. Beautiful. I teach a lot of presentations on this to the legal community on appreciating this human animal bond. So when you're walking your dog, don't be on your phone. Mm-mm. Talk to your dog. They understand when you talk to them. And Denise is going to, we'll probably talk about this a little bit more. Enjoy that human animal bond when you're outside with them, when you're going for a walk with them. I talk to my cats all the time. Some people would think I'm probably cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but they know what I'm saying. They really understand me. And, if I'm having a stressful day doing some really, difficult legal work, because I do work on animal abuse cases, I'll just tell them, guys, I'm going to shut my office door because I literally don't want you picking up my energy as I get really stressed out on these cases. So talk to them, enjoy that human animal bond, spend time with them. Third thing, brush your energy when you come home, especially from the workplace or if you've been in a crowded environment. Just take 10 or 15 seconds, start from your head and literally brush your arms, brush down the front of you, brush down your legs, brush down your back, just brush the energy. I'm not kidding, it works. Animals don't need a double-blind peer-reviewed study to tell us that something works. That's why they have been my greatest teachers. It works. So definitely give that a try. Now, for people who love essential oils and pretty much, anybody who comes to any of my classes, they're all essential oil people or crystal people or a mix of both. I want to give you some ideas with essential oils. So here's the thing. You can use essential oils to keep yourself balanced, emotionally balanced, to keep yourself grounded, to take the edge off of your anxiety. And you can also use them with your pets. So now, not all essential oil brands are safe for pets. So you can get with me if you have any questions about this. But if you have stress, oils like cedarwood, lime, palmarosa, valerian. Oh my gosh. Those are amazing for reducing your stress and therefore helping your pet not be stressed. Okay. You can, and here's the thing with an essential oil for emotions and behavior, you have to smell it. You have to smell it. Topical, it's really not going to do much. So put it in a diffuser and just let it go. Or, and I wish Rudy was here because he would do a demo. I just open up the bottle and they usually come to it and smell it. Or I'll put a drop in my hand, rub my hands together and just offer it. Dogs love that. They'll come up and literally lick your hands. If some of your anxiety is due to sadness or grief, frankincense is the oil for sadness and grief to pull you out of it. Floral oils like rose is also a good one. Eucalyptus is a good one. For anxiety, geranium, jasmine, myrrh, valerian, vetiver, these are all really calming and grounding and soothing oils. If there's anger, when I get mad because of some of the cases that I work on, when I get mad, oh my gosh, Stella goes and like smacks her brother. She's literally taking my anger and going and beating up Rudy. And it's like, okay, I have to shut my office door and not expose them to it. So anger, I like lavender, Palo Santo, blue tansy. Those are all really good. And then sometimes anxiety comes out of fear. Okay, so, sometimes I see, the really precious little dogs who are just shaking and they're so fearful and afraid, and they just need courage. They need courage. And so some oils that really help with courage are cedarwood, jasmine, Palo Santo, ylang ylang. Those are good ones to use. And remember, diffuse it or have them smell it. But do it for yourself, because if your pet is exhibiting some anxiety, treat yourself. You may not think that you have anxiety in that moment. Just remember that our companion animals are, man, they are very fine-tuned to that. So they could be telling you something like, hey, we're picking up something from you. It's like, oh, thank you for that. So today when Dobby and Rudy were going at it, it's like, okay, I need to smell my oils because I'm about ready to go into a very long day of Zoom calls, which is kind of unusual. So they're telling me something. Now, for those of you who love crystals, okay, show me my in the chat if you're a crystal person. Tell me if you love crystals. I love teaching about crystals. I love teaching the science, and when you understand the science, you understand what everybody else talks about. So for stress reduction, black tourmaline, blue lace agate, and amethyst. Those are like my top three. You need to de-stress, like calm and ground your energy. So black tourmaline, blue lace agate, and amethyst. For sadness and grief, if that's creating anxiety, rose quartz and celestite. Those are really good ones to work with. For anxiety, amethyst is good. Apophyllite is good. So here's the thing, and I'll give you a couple of more recommendations. Have the crystals on you. Like if they're little ones, put them in your pocket. Put them in your pocket, okay? Just have them on you. I have them all over my house. I have them in my pets, beds. I teach a lot of different techniques. Actually have an online full day crystal healing for animals class coming up on October 19th. I teach it twice a year. It's coming up. And one technique that I teach for animals is take a crystal and literally brush them, like touch it to their skin, and this is an amethyst that has really fine points on it. And I just brush them. And oh my gosh, they are just like a blob of like jello afterward when I do that one brush. Stella is gone. She's gone. She's totally calmed down. For fear, I like apophyllite, black tourmaline, labradorite, smoky quartz. Those are really good. And for anger, to really calm anger, which can then trigger anxiety if it's not resolved, I like black tourmaline, blue lace agate, and celestite. So again, carry crystals in your pocket, have crystals around your home, especially black tourmaline, because that can actually help with Wi-Fi frequencies and electromagnetic frequencies. Because crystals really can ground and calm your energy. And I even go into the science of how it transmutes negative frequencies and can just raise your energy to feel better. Because remember, when you feel good, your pets are going to feel good. And then one last thing that I do, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, it's called solfeggio frequency music. It's on YouTube, Solfeggio, solfeggio frequency music. There are 9 solfeggio frequencies. They are a frequency for a precise type of healing. Do you have fear? Do you need to calm down? Do you need to raise your frequency? If you go onto YouTube and just type in solfeggio frequency music, there's like 500 options. I literally play it on my television. So right now, whatever cats are downstairs, they are being exposed to solfeggio frequency music. It totally calms your entire home. It is the most amazing thing. It's very, very calming. My cats love it. Absolutely love it. So if you're gone during the day and you have an anxious dog that has separation anxiety, just run the solfeggio frequency. And that's another way that you can calm them down. So these are some of the things that I love to teach. I teach a lot of different classes. So I'm going to leave it there and I'm going to turn it over to Denise and I'm going to start looking at the chat and answering questions while Denise is talking. So, okay, Denise, take it
Great.
away.
Well, there was one question that I wanted to ask you. Somebody asked for the name of the oils, and that is Young Living, right?
Yes, because, and I go into this deeper in my book, The Oily Pet. Unfortunately, most brands of oils are actually not safe for pets because of how they grow the botanicals, how they harvest them, how they distill them. They put in like fillers and additives to make them cheaper. I mean, when I find a $3 bottle of lavender on the market, no, there's it's not real lavender. So I have spent literally the last 11 years deeply researching essential oils to be safe with pets. And I have landed on Young Living. That is the safe one. And when people come to me and say, what oils shouldn't I use, like diffusing or for them to smell or topically apply? And with Young Living, you can literally use everything. Absolutely every oil, even the oils that everybody else says you can't use. Young Living actually incorporates some of those oils into an animal specific line of products. So that should tell you something. So, I mean, if you're unfamiliar with that and you want to learn more, I mean, seriously, grab my book, The Oily Pet. It's got, first of all, it's got Rudy and Stella on the cover. It's got Dobby on the back, so that's all good. Um, but I literally walk you through how to understand what oils are safe. You can also go onto YouTube, and if you go to my page, I have a lot of oily pet classes. So I think I taught one a couple of months ago. Just look for the most recent. It's like an hour long. You can just listen to me talk about it and explain it, and it'll make sense when you listen to that class or get the book.
Okay, great. Well, I am going to talk just a little bit about animal communication. I don't have as much of a background as Allie does, that I just talk to animals. That's what I do. Um, and I would say most of the time when people come to me and they have anxious pets, they actually know what's making their pets anxious, but they don't trust their own intuition. So a lot of times I'm saying, "Oh, here's the reason behind it." And they'll say, "Oh, yes, that's what I thought." So, one of the benefits of animal communication is being able to be specific and get that information, but you don't need an animal communicator in order to do that. So, I want to encourage people to check in with their intuition, to tune in to their animal's anxiety. And the way that I recommend doing that is one, setting aside a specific time or situation, making sure you've got a quiet space and you can really focus on your animals. So that's the first thing, is making sure you don't have the other distractions. And then you can just get centered and get calm. I like to do a meditation, but all you have to do is really just set the intention that you're going to try and understand your pets better. And then the next thing I would do is use yes or no questions and ask your intuition, is this what's causing anxiety for my pet? And one of the things you might want to do is go through the list of things that Allie was mentioning, some of the things you might not think about. Is it the weather? Is it a frequency that's going on? Is it something with me that's affecting my pet? And just check in with your intuition to see if you get a yes or no about some of these things. And you just have to trust it. That's the first thing, is allow yourself to trust your intuition on those things. Some of the things that I ask a pet who is dealing with anxiety is whether they feel this way all the time or whether it is specific to a situation. And so that's one of the questions that you can ask to, and all of these are just to help you narrow down the things that you want to do to help them. For instance, if an animal is feeling anxiety in a specific situation, maybe one of the things is you don't want to expose them to that situation. I talked to a dog one time who really didn't like going for walks. He especially said he didn't like walking for exercise. He wanted his walk to be fun. He wanted to do it just for enjoyment and to sniff. And the owner said, "Oh, I'm trying to get exercise. Like, that's part of my intention for our walks." And so sometimes you have to put the animal's needs first. I also recently talked to someone who their pet was very anxious when other people come into their house. So they really couldn't have guests over. And it was to the point where I would tell this person, really, you shouldn't have guests for the time being, or it's okay to put your animal in a separate room because it's causing them so much anxiety that they would prefer not to be in that situation. So, as I'm going through these, first of all, use your intuition to try and tune into your pet. And then secondly, what do they need? Maybe what they need is to just not be in that situation until you can get them under control. So I do work with people sometimes to work to make progress over time so that their animal can interact with guests. So we want to get people to be on the same page with their pet. And then it is really important to talk to your animals. One of the things you can do is to show them empathy. And I recommend thinking about it like you would with another person. If you have a friend that says, am dealing with a lot of anxiety, you would want to show them empathy. And instead of trying to tell your pet, "Oh, it's okay, you shouldn't be stressed," or "Don't worry about this," think about saying, "I understand. I realize that in this moment it's uncomfortable for you." and just sympathize with their situation. And sometimes it can be helpful to explain, we have to do this anyway. For instance, taking pets to the vet. That's something that causes stress for almost every animal. But to let them know why you have to do this. And some animal communicators have told me this, that it's really important to tell them everything that's going on, and to first of all say, we're going to the vet, here's what they're going to do. Let them know they're going to be getting a shot, or they're going to be going in the back room for something. They need to know everything that's going to happen. And they may not understand everything. They don't understand all the same words that we do. But when we're talking to them, we're thinking about what's going to happen. So we are showing them those images, and sometimes they get the images if they don't understand the words. So, really being detailed. If you're going on a trip, tell them where you're going, where you're staying, when you're coming back, who's taking care of them, really giving them as much information as you possibly can. And that is the same with, say, a pet who has separation anxiety. Talk to them. Explain why you have to leave and where you're going, even though you may not think that they really understand that. It certainly can be very helpful. Another thing that comes up often is I've talked to pets where they will say, um, this is why I'm anxious. I talked to one animal or a dog that was reactive on walks, and he did not like other dogs. And when I asked, he said, I said, why do you react that way? He said, that's what other dogs do to me. And he had been raised with dogs that were taught to fight. And so he had that reaction for a reason. I was able to explain that those dogs are no longer there anymore. And so sometimes explaining a situation to an animal can help. Not always. I've talked to another dog, it's come up a lot recently with dogs. But this dog said, I just always feel anxious. It's always been there. So there's not always a big profound reason that's causing the anxiety. Some animals, just like some people, have more of an anxious personality, and it's just kind of part of who they are. Again, as Allie mentioned, those animals almost always have pet parents who are also anxious. Um, we have the same issues often so that we can heal them together. So that was one of the things I was going to recommend as well, that it's always important to look at yourself and what is going on in your life or in your relationship to anxiety. But in that case, I recommend that you do things to help overall bring down their nervous system. So, one thing you can do for that is create an energetic grounding cord. Animals who are not grounded often can't hear what I'm telling them or what their guardians are telling them. They just can't listen and say, "Oh, okay, I'm safe," because they're not really present. Their bodies don't feel necessarily safe to them. So you can create an energetic grounding cord just using thought and intention. So it starts at their heart and goes down into the center of the earth. And you just set the intention that it's going to help ground them to feel more present. And if you do this regularly over time, then you'll be able to use words more because they're in a better place where they can actually hear what you're trying to tell them. Another thing you can do is physical things. So I recommend very slow, intentional petting. If you do this, it helps to calm the nervous system. So, and you want to use your whole hand and make it flat, and it's almost like you're stretching the skin. You just want to move super, super slow and start at the top of the head and go all the way through the tail because that covers the entire nervous system. And so I recommend doing this a couple times a day to start sending calming messages to the nervous system. And if you want, you can also use a mantra when you do this, like I am safe or I am calm. So you're telling them, but also giving their bodies a physical signal to really take that in. And one of the final things that I want to mention that you can do is that anything that's relaxing for you is also going to be relaxing for your pets because you are sharing the same energy. So, meditating. Pets will often come and sit next to you if you're meditating or if you're being very still and calm because they feel that energy. Playing music, again, like Allie mentioned, music that's relaxing or calming for you is also going to be relaxing for your pets. So think about what you're doing, even just being more mindful. If you're more mindful, your pets will feel that as well. So anything that you would do for yourself that's relaxing and calming is also having that effect on your pet. So that's just another way that taking care of yourself is also taking care of your animals. So we've covered a lot. And so those are just a few of the practical things that I wanted to share, but I do want to have time to go over some questions as well. And Allie, I did have a question that came on over email before we got started. So I wanted to, if we can start with that. First of all, do you think that over grooming is always about anxiety?
No. Mm-mm. No, I mean there could be a lot of different things going on there. I mean it I always first start with food, especially anything skin related. What are they eating? I mean, unfortunately, pet food is just so I mean, they need to do better in the food that they offer to our pets. So a lot of time they could just be itchy or scratchy. So it could be food related. It could be an allergy to something. If you use a pet shampoo or a flea and tick treatment or something like that, they could be over grooming because they're itchy. If you rule out anything physical and there's nothing medically going on that's causing inflammation with the skin, then I would start looking at anxiety. So I mean, my rule of thumb is I always start with the physical and rule that out. And then most of the time it is behavioral. But you don't want to think it's behavioral when it's, hey, it's the shampoo, you know,
Mm.
and that's an easy solution. So that's my thought. I don't know. What do you
I
think?
I agree, and first I would go towards the food or the allergy route, but it could also be boredom. It could also be a reaction to another animal in the house that they kind of turn inward if something is kind of annoying them. So I don't think it's necessarily always anxiety. There can definitely be other things causing that.
Yeah, and that's such a good point. Like when you think about like, and I always come at it from the energetic perspective, when you're itching, like something has got under your skin. Is there a new animal in the home? Is there, another person in the home that just gets under the skin, you know,
Mm-hmm.
emotionally? And that's not necessarily anxiety. It could just be, I'm feeling kind of scratchy toward you, so I'm gonna scratch.
Yes.
I'm gonna scratch. So it's I like to help people look at it from the viewpoint of your pet. Like literally, like if you have to physically get down on the floor with them and look at it from their viewpoint and ask them. I mean, Denise, everything you said, absolutely 1,000,000% talk to your pets.
Mm-hmm.
They will, first of all, they will understand you, but you will start to understand them. And when you look at things from their perspective, I mean, it just opens up and it just gives you so much insight. Like, oh, you know, this is why you're having anxiety over the litter box. It's in a high traffic area. Like I wouldn't want the bathroom in a high traffic area. So it's when you can get on their level and look at it from their eyes, you can get a lot of perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then the other question that we had was a cat that had its teeth removed. If they're having some anxiety around food, do you have any other suggestions besides just what you are feeding them?
I mean, obviously you need to feed them food that they can eat with no teeth, but I would just talk to the cat and explain why this happened. I mean, for all the teeth to be removed, there have had to have been major infections and pain. And when you just talk to them and say, I know that this was painful and I know that this is different, but your mouth is going to feel so much better.
Hmm.
It's going to feel so much better and you're going to get some really awesome soft food. That this is going to be a good thing for you. And just, I mean, just like you're talking to like a kindergartner, like just help them understand this is a good thing.
And this is a place where we have to try not to put our own feelings on the animal because we assume that they're going to have anxiety about eating without teeth, but they are most likely feeling better than they were before.
Hmm.
If they were in a lot of pain, then we have to step back and take our own assumptions out of the situation.
Oh yeah, that's such a good point. I mean, I had a cat several years ago. He literally had three teeth. There was nothing slowing him down from eating anything. He literally had no issue with
And
with that.
yes, I've known of cats without teeth that still get hard food.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely. And you made such a good point that we have emotions about what they're going through, and then they start feeding off of it. And when I showed you the story of Rudy after he had been through the bladder stones and the surgery, and then Lucy passing away, I mean, a lot of that he was feeding off of me
mhm.
because I was traumatized for him. I was grief stricken losing Lucy, and it's like, okay, we have to do this together. And so yeah, that's such a good point that we just can't impose how we would feel if we were in that situation.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
We might assume that they feel a certain way.
yeah.
Yes. So were there any other questions on the chat that you wanted to talk about, or did you answer them through the chat?
Yeah, I looked through everything. Does anybody have any other questions? I mean, Caroline, what you just wrote, animals are so much more resilient than we are in adjusting to change. They really are. I mean, they are fascinating. I mean, I have spent my career working with abused animals, and while there are some that need a little extra work, overwhelmingly, my goodness, wow, that we could learn something from them, and we do. Yeah.
And Caroline mentioned that she had two of her dogs that were fighting. And after I talked to them, she said they
Mhm.
never fought again. I wasn't sure if I got that update before, but that's so exciting. Thank you for sharing very much. It's amazing to hear those stories. See, how do, let's see, Joanne asks, how do I leave my fearful, um,
Yeah, may
oh,
I
go
speak?
ahead. Yeah, go
Hi.
ahead.
Yeah, I didn't type that well. I have a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old who was in a puppy, who was a puppy mill mom for 5 years. I've had her about 9 months. And I don't know how to leave her if I want to go on vacation. She's afraid of everyone but me. So she needs work. She's better, but she doesn't trust anyone. So it's kind of restricting my life. And if I want to go away, I tend not to for her sake. I don't think that's good.
All right, Denise, do you want to start on this one?
I That's a tough one. If you have some ideas, go ahead.
Well, I guess my first question is, have you introduced her to somebody that you trust?
Yes.
And how
Mhm.
did that go?
She tolerates other people, but she'll sit right next to me. And if
Okay.
I leave, she gets upset.
Okay.
She'll.
Do you talk to her before you're leaving?
I
To,
do, but I usually just tell her I'll be back. It's okay. And that's it. I don't talk to her and explain. No.
okay. If you can be more precise, I mean, like Denise said, I mean, animals interpret every time we talk, we create images in our consciousness that they can interpret. So like when I mean, I do a lot of traveling. My cats don't like it, but they're okay with it because I'll literally say, "Hey, I need to go drive to Detroit Metro Airport. I'm going to get on an airplane and fly to Tucson. I will be back Wednesday at noon." Literally, they're like, "Oh, okay, that's no big deal." And I'm like, "Your pet sitter is coming for dinner. She's going to come for breakfast tomorrow. She's going to come for dinner the next day, and then I'm going to be home." And even the pet sitter, she's like, they're totally fine. And then they're waiting for me at the door when I come home. They know. So if you can use precision in that and just say where I'm going, I'm going to be with family, I'm going to be with friends. You're going to have a great time. You can just rest and sleep. Like just like I
Communicate
just try being very detailed, like literally pretend like your dog is
is a person.
Mhm.
like a first grader, like just how
Yeah.
how you would talk to a first grade child,
Mm-hmm.
6, 7-year-old child.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Okay.
where I'm going. This is who I'm going to be with. This is what I'm going to be doing, and this is when I'll be home, and this is who's taking care of you. Yeah, I think I
Yeah.
think that's very, very beneficial.
I'll work with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know. But if
I
it's more than, I've never left her at all with anyone. So if
Okay.
it's more than 3 or 4 days, then I don't know if that's gonna do it for her,
well, I for me,
and
I think you'll have to start small and get
mhm.
her, find someone, a trusted friend that's willing to work with the dog as well, because the dog needs to get used to another person and have someone that they trust. So that's the first thing I would do is figure out who in your life could be a dog sitter who's willing to work with them to help out, and then start small and do a couple hours or a little bit at a time, and at some point try an overnight.
Yeah, slow. I
Yeah,
do everything slow for her. Well, thank you very much.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully,
And
I'll talk to her more because I do have a
yeah.
tendency to listen to podcasts when I walk her. So I will
Oh,
stop
yeah.
that.
Yeah. And, if you're feeling nervous about leaving her alone, she's going to wonder, why are you nervous about leaving me alone? Okay, I need to be nervous about something. So you can And then her nervousness is going to make you nervous. And then it's literally going back and forth. So it's,
I have to crate her if I go out for a few hours. You know, I'm retired, so it's never very long, but yeah.
yeah.
Because if I don't, she howls and howls.
Can I recommend one more thing that you can do an energetic practice of giving her a shield. Like just think about wrapping her up in energy. And I like to say only goodness and love are allowed inside. And if you can get in the practice of doing that, hopefully she'll start to feel more safe and more protected. So that's something that you can try.
Maybe while she's getting her slow rub.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. We have a question from Jane. So you work with a rescue group that fosters shelter dogs, mostly seniors. Is there an ethical issue of doing some of these modalities with them? So I do a lot of work in shelters. I never ask permission from the shelter. I just don't. I don't. I go in, I know what I'm doing, and I just do it. They have no clue. But with you having a relationship with them, you could just say, "Hey, I'm just going to try out these techniques, and they're either going to work or they won't." I mean, there's no downfall. I mean, with animals, it either works or it doesn't. There's just no in between. So you could certainly have a conversation with them, but technically it's between you and the animal. And like in all of my classes, I teach how to get consent, whether you're working with essential oils or crystals or energy healing or anything like that. But gosh, yeah, with rescue dogs in foster or sheltering, oh, the anxiety can be really intense. But at the same point, we were literally talking about this in a class on Saturday, that we don't want to stifle a dog's barking.
No.
We
Yeah.
need to let them get it out, but yet in shelters, they don't want them barking. And it's like, but then they're going to end up with issues if they've literally been suppressed and told not to bark. You know, it's like telling a cat, don't scratch the couch. It's like, well, that's their job. It's to scratch things. That's their thing. You just got to redirect it in a different direction. So, yeah, I love teaching people who work with shelters and rescues. I mean, it will just, there's
Yeah.
so many things that we can do to help them.
Yes. I find that we get a lot of dogs that come in, their person has died, their whole life is in an upheaval. They get stuck, they're a Chihuahua who gets stuck in a kennel. The shelter I work with is wonderful. They have a vet service, full-time vet services. I mean, we work very closely with them to get them the medical care they need, but a lot of these dogs come in traumatized. And we need to get them into foster homes. And then the foster says, they're having issues because the dog has a separation anxiety, or, barks all the time, or is terrified of everything, or fights, and or food aggression, all of that stuff. And I know these are things that I can work with, but I didn't know, because some people may not understand what a animal communicator is, or, using essential oils or things like that. But I really feel like this is one of my major callings, is to provide that ability for that help their foster or their new adopter understand the dog better and work with them, like you said about the barking. Screaming at the dog to shut up is not a constructive way of having them understand you. I understand what you're saying, because I work with my dogs doing that same thing. Like, good, great, yeah, that's enough. Thank you. It's because that's their job. You don't want to stifle it, but we've got fosters who live in apartment buildings and can't have barking dogs all day. You know, so I do feel like I need to work with these dogs to make them better than, you know, than their circumstances dictate.
Mhm. Yeah, and the only thing I would mention, I think it's great, all the energy work that you can do. I would be very careful about doing any hands-on techniques.
Yeah.
I just have to mention that to anybody that might be working with rescues, that some animals in this situation are not prepared to be touched. So that's the only thing. I think you can do all of the energy practices for sure.
Yeah. Good. You're right about that, because you've got to be very careful. Some dogs are not used to being touched or have been touched in a very bad way, or they're just scared to death. And you wouldn't want to do that inside their kennel. You know,
Mm,
maybe once they're out in the foster home, you know,
mhm.
I can work with them a little bit
Yeah,
more.
but just use caution to anyone that,
For sure.
yeah.
And hands-on techniques, no hands-on techniques. Thank you for that. That's a
Hmm.
good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, so we have a couple of more questions. And you know, I read both of these and it's like you need to have a session with Denise. Um, um, Amy, you mentioned you have a crystal at the automatic feeder of your cat. Can I ask what crystal you have?
You know what? I don't remember, but I bought it from you from a fair. So I'm sure whatever it is, it's the right one.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But I honestly don't remember which one it is.
Okay. All right.
And that the first thing that comes up for me again is it could be a health issue. I mean, there could be a physical reason why an animal feels like they're hungry all the time. So you might want to rule something like that out. But yes, another option is, feel in, like I was mentioning, check in with your intuition. Does this feel like he's it's a physical thing where he's actually hungry all the time? Is he just obsessed with food? Is it fun for him? Like, try and see what that feels like. And then this is a case where you can try to talk to them and just explain why he can't eat more often, or why in this case, he's probably obsessed with human food as well. So explaining why he can't have that food. But otherwise, I don't have any specific tips to get him to not be obsessed.
Okay, no, that helps. I'll try definitely checking in with intuition and see what I get.
Yeah, and I have two cats like this. Stella and Dobby, they are very food driven. And I mean, I pretty much discovered that they were in homes with, I mean, they literally had to fight for food. There were other animals and so they get very excited when there's food and they eat it really super fast.
Yeah,
And
same.
then
Yep.
like they're always worried that they're never going to get enough. And that can be challenging because that could have been really hardwired in them from when they were little. And then that's just built in as a part of their personality. So, you know, one thing that I do so that they, you know, because my cats get wet food, you know, specific times during the day. I split the meal in half. So I give them half and then they scarf it down. And then all of a sudden, 5 minutes later, they get another half. And they're like, oh, this is a bonus breakfast. And it literally takes the edge off of them.
Hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. Give that. I mean, you said you're using an automatic feeder 6 times a day. That's a that's a pretty good amount. So yeah. So I don't know if that helps. But sometimes this is just really hardwired and you know, just like Denise said, just kind of talk and listen to your intuition, talk to them.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that definitely was the scenario. We got them from the Humane Society, and they had mentioned came from like a house with a lot of cats. So
Yeah.
definitely, I think a hardwired situation. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we want to let Jennifer, if you want to unmute, and ask your question?
I'm the crazy cat lady that has 10 cats. But we have two, a male and a female that do not get along. And I know it's obviously, very stressful and traumatic for them, but I give the one this, I wish I knew the name of it, but it's like a supplement that really helps to kind of chill her out, and it does work. But our one black fluffy one tends to just kind of like look at her and kind of gives her that little flinch, like, I'm going to get you. And then she gets scared and starts growling. And it's like, I don't know what to do as far as like handling both of them, because they both pee in the weirdest areas. It's like several different areas. It doesn't make any sense as to why they would do it. Like one pees on the stove. It's like, what has the stove got to do with anything? And then today, the little female just was standing there and peed by the back door. Now I understand, okay, outside cats might be an issue, but I mean, they don't have any physical issues. I've taken them to the vet and gotten lab work done. But I mean, I know it's what do they call it? Oh, I can't even think of the word now. I know that it's an emotional kind of a thing, but what would you do as far as trying to get the two of them to just relax and chill and stop? I've tried talking to them saying, what is it? It's okay. But yet when they pee, I get so angry, but I try to stop and say, it's okay. But they'll never learn if I keep saying it's okay and, use the litter box. And I'm at wit's end. I don't know what to do.
All right, Denise, do you want to take this?
I can,
Okay.
talk. So the first thing is to figure out what the message is that they're trying to get across. Because it does sound like they're trying to tell you something. And what
No.
I like to do is when I communicate with an animal and they tell me, oh, this is why I'm peeing outside the litter box, then I like to thank them and say, okay, I got the message. I understand. So so again, using your intuition to see if you can come up with reasons why they might be doing this. And it could be that they're not happy with the other cat that you're mentioning.
Oh, I'm
They're not
sure.
getting along.
Yeah.
And so I like to let them know we've got the message. You don't have to do this anymore. We only use the litter box. So again, you mentioned that focusing on what you want. And so, and Q had asked about this too. It can be really helpful to show them what you want them to do instead. So with two cats that are not getting along, think about just imagining the best case scenario. What would it look like if they were getting along? Would they be playing? Would they be cuddling or laying next to each other? So you want to spend as much time as you can focusing on the behavior that you want. And by imagining that, they'll get those images and see what that looks like. Now, there might be more going on. So I guess we'd really have to get into it with them to truly understand what all the reasons are. But it struck me, it was kind of funny because someone one time told me that their dog was peeing in their kitchen on the appliances, and she said, I really hate those appliances. And we realized that the dog recognized that she didn't like them. And so it was like, well, you don't like these anyway. So there can be little nuances as well as, so that goes back to, is there anything going on with you that they could be picking up on? And which is probably a bigger question than we can answer today.
Right.
But
Right.
But that's where I feel like, and Allie can add to this, that maybe some kind of essential oils can help just to bring some calm into the household, or even doing like a home clearing, just to shift the energy. Because if you've got 10 cats, they all have their own energy fields, and there can just be a lot going on.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. And the word I was looking for was territorial. So I was wondering if there was an oil or something, because I do use Young Living and have tons of them. So is there a few that you would recommend that would just kind of make them chill? And would that frequency music maybe even help?
If frequency music will help. Yeah, with the oils, what you could do is one at a time, just kind of hold the oil about 12 to 18 inches away from them and see if they'll come to it. But like off the top of my head, I would first start with the acceptance blend. They need to accept that they live in the same home.
True.
They need to get over it. And telling that to
True.
cats is not easy. And so it's like they need to accept that they have a home and this is the home. This is the way we do things. Second one would be the harmony oil.
Huh?
Getting harmony in the home. And I mean, are both I guess I'm trying to understand. It's one the instigator and the other one is a little more timid, or are they both kind of the instigators?
Well, the male is, I think, like 10 years old, and the female is about 5. And he liked her and the other 2 kittens when they were born, but the female, I think, has grown up just kind of fearful, and so she growls a lot to be proactive in protecting herself. And I think that's really to her detriment. But he tends to kind of not really chase her around, but like he'll jump off the counter right where she's at, and she freaks out, growls and hisses. And he stops right where he's at, and I'll say, Sam, and he'll turn around like, sorry, Mom, but it's fun,
Okay. So
that kind of thing.
she needs the valor oil. She needs courage and
Okay.
confidence that when he's
She
doing whatever,
does.
yeah, it doesn't matter what he's doing, she is secure and centered in who she is, and she can just ignore him. So valor, just for her, not for him. He does not need any more
Right.
confidence. So primarily for him. And it sounds like she could be a highly sensitive cat, and the Melissa
Yes.
oil is really good for taking the edge off of highly sensitive animals. Like, the dog that sits in the window and is barking at the FedEx man that's 5 blocks down the street. Like they already know, oh my God, the FedEx man is coming, and they're going. So that's what Melissa is for. It just cuts the edge right off.
And they're both very sweet and loving, and it just kills me because it's like I want to give them away, but who's going to take a cat that pees? And I know it's territorial, but I got to deal with it, and so do they.
When cats pee outside the box, they are trying to get your attention.
Absolutely.
What a great way to get a person's attention. That is the number one way a cat will get your attention. And they're telling you, I'm upset. Something's not right. And it could be something very small, or it could be something really big and bothersome. And that's the trick. And that's where what Denise does is really amazing, to try to unearth what the root cause is. So they're trying to get your attention. They are literally telling you, we are not happy. So maybe you can sit with them independently and just say, I know you're not happy. What are we going to do? Let's fix this. Do you want to talk with Denise? Do we need to have a session with Denise? So, yeah, because they are doing everything to get your attention.
Well, they know they have it, but why we can't seem to fix this? This has been going on for a few years, and nothing's working. Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, and then it can become ingrained, and they're like,
that's what I'm wondering if it is now.
Yeah, where they're just like, this is what we do because we've been doing it for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but try those oils and see if they work. And I mean, you can diffuse, but you can literally just uncap the oil and just hold it like 18 inches out from them. You can wave it back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
See if they come to it. Like, do they come like,
Okay.
"Ooh, what's that?" Or
Yeah.
if they run away, they're saying, "Mm-mm, no, that's not my oil." And you just literally have to work your way through the oils.
Okay. Cool. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Denise, is everybody going to get a recording of this?
Yes, I am recording it, so we'll send that out tomorrow. And I want to let everyone know that I have an animal communication workshop this weekend. It's 2 hours, and I go through the steps of how to communicate with an animal, and we practice on one of mine. So you're able to get feedback right away, where I can tell you, yes, this is definitely coming from my animal or not. So I put the information in the chat, but I'll also include that in the email that goes out tomorrow.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I put a couple of links in there to the Oily Pet book, to my Crystals for Animals class is coming up, and then to that frequency class that I mentioned that is about an hour long and goes really in depth about everything that's influencing animals right now and can cause anxiety. So those are there as well.
That's great. And I want to watch that myself. I can't wait to learn more about that. So,
Yeah.
so thank you everyone for coming. I really appreciate your time and your questions, and I hope that it was helpful. And you have our information, so if there's anything else we can help with, please let us know.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Yes. All right. Thanks, everyone.